I believe America is so desperately deprived of the nutrient of sensuality, which is different from sexuality. Chen Lizra, in her interview on the Lewis House School of Greatness podcast, describes a phenomenon called sabrosura. And she describes sabrosura as an experience of enjoying being yourself in community with other people. At least that's my interpretation of how she defines sabrosura. And she specifically studies the Cuban people, which just so happens to be half of my lineage. I'm Cuban and I'm Colombian. And one thing that she mentioned that resonated and ached so deeply in my bones that it almost caused grief is that the Cuban people, a hidden benefit of them being deprived of the technologies of modern day capitalism, is that they had access to radical presence. They had nothing really else to do. They can't scroll on the phone and watch videos like this one. They can't chat all day in different like chat apps or whatever, or even create content. So really all that they can do is learn to enjoy the experience of being alive and learn how to be present with the sensations in their body, which creates this sort of electrifying way of being that feels so good to the nervous system from the inside out. And I'm not saying that Cuban life is inherently better than American life. I'm not saying that there's not problems with how the government is run in Cuba. What I'm offering is that in America, we are so constantly chasing the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, hustling and grinding, climbing some bullshit ass corporate career ladder, valuing ourselves based off of the material things that we have or how we look at the expense of our own nervous systems, our own hearts, at the expense of our creativity, at the expense of flow state, at the expense of having a deeper connection with the person right in front of us. We're constantly consuming new information or clocking into a job or worried about survival such that we deprive ourselves of the experience of simply enjoying what it feels like to look at the black behind our eyelids and to sense the space between our eyeball and our eyelid, while also allowing music to land in our eardrum in a way that it feels like almost this music is kissing or gently caressing the inside of our ear. Or the experience of dancing with someone or meeting someone's gaze and communicating beyond words, beyond performance. A lot of what's wrong in this country, I feel, would be healed with radical presence. If people had the opportunity to slow down enough to be able to actually experience the deliciousness of the moment, to notice what it feels like to smell something and have it smell good, and to be so deeply connected to that sensation of smell that it almost feels like it's not just smell, it's like touch is touching the inside of your nose and it touches you differently based on the different smell. And the same thing with sound as well. If we listen to music that we love or even music that we don't love, sensuality allows us to feel what it feels like to almost have a synesthesia. And synesthesia, the definition, if I remember correctly from back in my grade school days when I first heard this magical word, is the experience of two or more senses combining. So it's almost like tasting a sound or touching a smell. I really do believe that people can actually practice the muscle of strengthening synesthesia through sensuality. And I'm going to define sensuality, or sabrosura as Chen Lizra calls it, as the experience of being so deeply present with the sensational experience of your body that it actually allows for experiences of synesthesia. It allows us to sort of like dream while we're awake. It allows us to interpret and experience the medicine of our senses. And what this does, I find, at least for me in my journey as I practice sensuality more, is that my nervous system gets out of this chronic state of fight or flight, which it seems like all of this country is under a trance of this trance of survival mode that's mostly caused by our chronic hustle and our inability to slow down and our constant consumption of caffeine and all these other things. When I sit with myself enough to slow down as much as I can, because there's privilege there too, and I recognize that, it allows my nervous system to get out of this state of fight or flight and to experience this moment as a new moment, because it is a new moment. Every moment, this one and this one and this one is a completely novel experience if we allow ourselves to sense it, right? And there's so many ways to activate sensuality and practice sensuality. I think it looks different for people. For me, exploring this erotic, sensual expression, speaking my ideas and sharing them, is a way that I invoke this sort of spirit or energy of sensuality so that I relax my nervous system and feel more tapped into the part of me that's plugged into God or creative life force energy. And I find that our greatest ideas come when we're in that flow state, in that radical state of sort of electrifying presence, where we can calm ourselves enough to where the mind isn't just rattling, perpetuating more fight or flight, more heightened cortisol levels, and we're experiencing the pleasure of this moment. It actually activates the prefrontal cortex of the brain more because we feel turned on by life. And honestly, this is my biggest intention for 2025, is to radically practice, invoke, channel, create, and inspire sensuality, sabrosura. I feel like in a way this is a reclamation of my sexy lineage, my Cuban heritage, my Colombian heritage as a Hispanic Latino man, right? To slow down enough to be able to do that. And actually, I really deeply believe that it'll increase the quality of my work, the content that I provide to people, the work that I do in my day job. I believe that the quality of my work will be injected with this divinity that comes through sensuality. Some people call this there's a Greek god, Eros. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I did not fact check this. I'm totally freestyling this video, but I'm pretty sure Eros is one of the children of Aphrodite in Greek mythology. And Aphrodite is the goddess of beauty, feminine energy, pleasure, right? And she has a child named Eros, and Eros is the god or the archetype that represents erotic expression. And this can be sensual, it can be sexual, it could be anything in between. But it's the places in our psyche where we most enjoy being ourselves, where we most lose flow. It's that experience that we feel when, a pianist that loves playing piano is playing the piano and they're so entranced by that present moment that hours fly. Or when a journalist is writing and they get lost in writing and they're writing for 8 hours a day. I know that's happened to me. Or this experience of me creating this video and it feels like ideas are just flowing to me and there's no vocalized fillers. There's no desire for me to try and perform. I'm being myself authentically on camera because that's what feels erotic to me. It feels like devotion. It feels like a way that I'm celebrating the way that God or divinity moves through me by expressing in a way that feels good. I believe that the world needs this. Okay? And this is my main intention for 2025, is to learn to expand my capacity to hold this Eros energy and to explore how I can show that publicly to the world in my personal brand and in my day-to-day experience, hanging out with my friends, hanging out with myself, being at the gym, doing my job in this sensual way, slowing down such that the quality of my actions is infused with rest and digest and creative life force instead of survival mode energy that comes from rushing the process. One of my mottos that honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I got this tattooed at some point: icons don't rush. And rushing is the antithesis to divinity. Rushing is a way that we cockblock ourselves from the absolute magic of God entering us and giving us an idea of the next steps of our main quest of our life. I will unalive on this hill that America needs more sensuality. And I'll leave you with this. What are some moments in your life that you thought of as I was speaking? Those moments will often give us clues to where we might explore this energy. What are some ways that you can invoke more sensuality, more presence? How can you experience what your body feels like from the inside out as you're living? And what might that do for you when you slow down enough to interrupt the chronic trance of survival mode and hustle and grind, and you're no longer in fight or flight, so blood flows to the creative force places in your brain because you no longer feel like you're in danger? What might that do for your creativity and the way that you show up in the world? What opportunities would you then attract because you're choosing to slow down enough to trust that you're always receiving and you're not actually missing out at any point? That turns me on, okay? That is the kind of life I want to live. That's the kind of life I hope to inspire in anybody who's watching this video and the people around me. And those are the kinds of relationships that I'm calling into my life. I already have so many relationships and friendships like that are just so present and sensual and so there's so much joy and richness and vitality and electricity in our interactions. And I'm aiming to 10x, 100x, 1000x that in all areas of my life. And I hope that this video is almost like a prayer that's anchored into you. Maybe it wiggled something in your nervous system enough for you to be inspired to realize that icons don't rush, okay? And that letting go of rushing is a gift to yourself. Letting go of rushing is a way that you are in ceremony with the divine and having an active relationship with the part of you that's connected to God. And if God's not your word, you could replace it with nature, universe, source, spirit, great mystery, great creator, right? But whatever expands your capacity to experience the wisdom of great creator moving through you, that is how I define sensuality. And that's the world I'm working on creating. What are your thoughts? What does sensuality mean to you? Do you couple that with sexuality? Is it different for you, right? What more questions do you have on this topic? Let me know in the comments and I'll make something. With the TikTok ban, I figured it's time for me to get on YouTube and yap. The style of video you're going to see from me is like this. Okay, and whatever else I want to create, maybe I make vlogs in the future, I don't know. But instead of scrolling today, I felt inspired to speak about this topic because I'm so passionate about it, and maybe it helps someone. Thank you so much for watching. You could have been anywhere else with your time, and your magical self chose to spend it with me. That means a lot. Thank you, and peace.